Last episode of the Play Now Online series was episode 20, which means it is time to go ahead and review the last 10 teams I use. I'm going to rank them from my least favorite teams to my most favorite teams. And before we get to that, I just wanted to put a note out there, and even though I'm going to answer this right now, I'm sure I'm going to have to say it again and again, I'm not skipping any teams throughout this series. Throughout every video now, the comment section is starting to get dominated by people like, where is this team, where are the Spurs, where are the Nets, and really what happened is I was playing these teams in order, and when I got to certain teams, I just didn't feel like stopping and playing with that team. So for instance, there was the 2005 Spurs, and the reason they didn't go with these 10 teams is because before I ever started putting this series on YouTube, my go-to team was the 2005 Spurs. So when they came up for me to play with, I was like, I've already played like 30 games with these guys, I kind of want to use a team that I've never used before, and therefore they didn't get an episode. But by the time this series ends, every single team is going to have a video. I've already played games with teams like the 04 Wolves and the Nets and the Spurs, all teams that people have been asking for. So no matter how good a team is or how bad a team is, they are going to have an episode in this series in due time. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start ranking. At number 10, I have the 99 Knicks, and this is a squad that when I did the episode for them, I said I was sleeping on them because they were pretty fun to use. However, in this top 10 list, this was pretty competitive because a lot of these teams were a lot of fun to use and a lot of them were really good, so the 99 Knicks just kind of by default got the 10th spot. Although I used them for that one episode, I was kind of skeptical of ever going back to them because I did mention there that yeah, I was playing the 01 Sixers, and that's one of the worst classic teams in this game, so it made it kind of hard to use them as a measuring stick for how good this 99 Knicks team actually was. However, I did like this team system because playing with them reminded me of using the Orlando Magic in 2K9, and of course the Magic were a lot better of a 3-point shooting team, but here it was cool because you had Patrick Ewing down low and you had shooters surrounding him everywhere, even at the power forward spot because Larry Johnson could knock down the mid-range. I really liked the team aspect of their game, but overall there was just no way they were going to get a spot over the next 9 teams, because even sitting here now talking about them, they're the team that I remember least about. So they were fun to use once, but they're definitely getting the 10th spot on this list. At number 9, I'm going 96 Sonics because when I sat down to do the rankings, the only thing I remembered about playing with this squad was Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp. I remember there was a lot of support pieces where I was passing them the ball and they weren't knocking down their shots. And even the other day, I played an episode against them that you guys haven't seen yet, but you're going to see in the future, and they were relatively easy for me to beat because if this guy couldn't get to the rim with Shawn Kemp and I wasn't letting him really operate with Gary Payton, it just didn't really seem like there was so much he could do with that roster. Now, I will admit, I probably didn't get the full experience playing with this roster because I wasn't throwing lobs left and right to Shawn Kemp, and I assume that's something people have a lot of fun with. But again, it's just kind of tough ranking because when you look at the 8 teams that come in front of them, there was just a lot more that you could do with these squads in terms of playstyles, so I know a lot of you probably have fun with this 96 Sonics team, but just because of the other 8 teams that they had to rank with, I kind of put them back there with the 99 Knicks. Now this one's gonna surprise you a little bit. At the 8th spot, I'm going the 2004 Lakers. And the reason that's surprising is because out of this whole list, I would say the 04 Lakers are probably the most talented team. But I just did that episode a few days ago, so you probably remember that for me, this just wasn't my favorite squad. And I guess this mostly has to do with my bias because I feel like this is a team that you pick when you just don't feel like losing. The 04 Lakers create many mismatch problems with whatever team you're going to play against, being that you have Shaq and Karl Malone down low, and then you still have Kobe Bryant and Gary Payton on the perimeter. So that means 9 times out of 10, you're going to be playing a team that doesn't really have good matchups for that. And so I believe my second game that I ever played online in NBA 2K18 was the 08 Nuggets against the Lakers. And I remember I turned that game on and I'm like, man, what the hell are we doing here? Because that team just didn't really stand a chance against them. So while they are fun to use, I would much rather prefer this team in a 2K where you could actually see who your opponent is picking, because I feel like you could just get some more fun matches if you were going super team versus super team. So for instance, I've ran into a couple of matches with the 04 Lakers versus the 13 Heat, and that's kind of fun because the Heat do have a lineup that they can run against the Lakers where they can play small ball, and that can kind of neutralize Karl Malone. It can make it a fair match. But then I also ran into matchups where I was using the classic Knicks team from like the 70s and they just don't match up well at all with the 04 Lakers. So overall I just feel like it's really unbalanced, and that's why they got my A spot. But don't be fooled, out of everybody on this list, the 04 Lakers are definitely the best team. I'm just ranking them based on how I like them. At the 7th spot, we're going 05 Suns, and like I said, this is a very fun team to use on offense. They have an elite small ball lineup, they have an elite shooting lineup. Amar'e Stoudemire is one of the most dangerous power forwards that you're going to have to deal with, but the reason they got my 7th spot is because, like I said in that episode, the defense is just going to kill you. So while it can be fun running up the scoreboard, when you get a matchup like I had against the Thunder, or maybe you're playing against like Kobe Bryant or LeBron James, you're not really going to have a good answer for them. And in that sense, between offense and defense, this just might be the most unbalanced team in the game, because their offense is on one spectrum and their defense is on a completely different spectrum. And in terms of 2K teams, I really like when you have a good balance of both. And you're going to see that when I get closer to my favorite teams at the top of the list, because those are all more balanced teams. At the 6th spot, let's go 2001 Lakers, and this is where it gets really competitive, because everyone from this point out I really enjoyed playing with on both offense and defense, and I just kind of had to find minor differences to rank them. So of course I like the 01 Lakers because this is just prime Kobe and Shaq with nothing else to really focus on the team. Running pick and rolls with Shaq is a lot of fun, going baseline with Kobe and dunking on the entire team is a lot of fun, and overall they're just one of the most iconic teams in NBA history, so it's really fun to have them in the video game form. Personally, one of my favorite things about this team is what you can do with the power forward spot, because I believe they're starting Horace Grant, but you can also put Robert Horry in there, and that's really fun to run with Shaq because that gives him so much space down low. So I had a lot of fun running sets where I would have Horry on the perimeter and Shaq down low. I would tell him to post up and then I would pass into the post with Horry. And from that point, it was just kind of pick your poison, because it was like, yeah, you can double team Shaq if you want to try to stop this, but then I'm going to have a wide open 3 with Horry, and then your defense is going to be in rotation before you know it gets to Kobe, and that's just a good way to attack with that squad. And I've played against some guys online who really knew what they were doing with Kobe. And let me tell you, when you unlock Kobe's full potential in this game and you know all of his moves, you can basically do whatever you want. It's a lot of fun to dominate with him. So it might surprise you that at my 5th spot, I had the 03 Mavericks in front of the Lakers. And even as I'm looking at it, I'm kind of wondering how that happened, but then I remember I just had so much fun with Nash and Dirk. But also on top of that, you wouldn't expect it, but it is kind of useful to have Sean Bradley in this game running center. In real life, Sean Bradley is a complete laughing stock and we all know him for getting dunked on, but in the game, having somebody that's like 7'6" in the paint is somewhat of a cheat code, because we already know that it's hard to get layups in this game. You drive to the rim with these guys and it looks open, but if it's even slightly contested, it's probably gonna miss. And when you have Bradley down there filling up the paint, yeah, he's slow to move his feet, so it's kind of hard to use help defense, but if you do have him down there in time, it is definitely a good defensive strategy. And then another reason the Mavericks got over the Lakers here is because Dirk Nowitzki is one of my favorite players to use in this game. So I think 20 episodes through, I named Dwayne Wade, Dirk Nowitzki, and Larry Bird as 3 of my favorite guys that I've used, and it is just so much fun dominating with Dirk. He has an array of post moves that are just really unstoppable, back to the basket. If you leave him open for 3, his release is really easy to green light. And then that one leg fader that actually lost me the game that I put up with them, more often than not I would get that right. And that's a really tricky move for the defense to go against, because you'll just be running to the left and then all of a sudden you'll pick up your shot and shoot it. And normally for guys on this game, when you're moving with them, it kind of lowers the rate at which they make their shots, but for Dirk it's going in most of the time, so I really love that. And it's not even just 2003 Dirk, it's both of them. So this is Dirk in 03 and even Dirk in 11. He is super fun to play with, but I'm gonna save that for when I get to that episode, because that's gonna be a great one. My number 4 spot goes to the 96 Bulls, and this is one of the teams I was talking about earlier in the list where I love a team that's more balanced with their offense and defense, and the Bulls are basically the epitome of that. Hounding people with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen was so much fun, and this is a team that I actually did play a lot of games with, and I don't think I showed a whole lot of them. I was really giving people headaches because although I didn't name Michael Jordan as one of my favorite players to use, he is also one of the top skilled players in the game, and so you can just really dominate from the mid-range and in the paint with him, and it's almost like playing with Dwayne Wade from the 06 Heat episode that I just posted a couple of days ago. Except the difference with Michael is that he can hit a lot more off-balance shots than Dwayne Wade can. So you'll be driving to the rim and you'll spin and fade away. He has that fadeaway move pat down by the time the 96 Bulls are around, so that's a really perfect move in this game. And overall, he just gets hot really quickly. I think the mistake that people make though when they use the 96 Bulls is that they only try to use Jordan. So while I did know how to dominate with Jordan, you kind of have to ease your way into it, because if you go into it and just use him and start missing shots, you get cold, and then that kind of ruins the whole flow of the game. And when you pick up the 96 Bulls, just make sure you do not forget Scottie Pippen. He can hit a 3-point shot, he can get to the rim, and remember, offense isn't the only way to get hot with this team. So using defense between Michael and Scottie, you can hound anybody's star player. And I actually found them to be like kryptonite to the 2013 Heat, because when you match up with them, that's a super team in the game, and especially with LeBron James, they can be a real headache to deal with. But if you put Michael and Scottie on him and start trapping, and when he goes to the corner you send double teams, it can make the other guys start making some really bad decisions. And because the 96 Bulls defense is so great, that's just something you can use to transition into the offense. So that's who I'm going with for my 4th spot. At my number 3 spot, although they aren't better than the Bulls, I had more fun playing with the 06 Heat. And again, this is the episode I just posted, so I just did a whole thing about them that you can go see. But like I said, Dwayne Wade and Michael Jordan, there's a lot of similarities playing with those guys in this game. They don't specialize from 3, but they are very good slashers, and they have good mid-range ratings. And on top of those mid-range ratings, they have so many moves to get those points. So you can make good use of that, and also make really good use of Shaquille O'Neal, because although this is his old version, the man is still dominant in the paint, and it was a whole lot of fun just pinning people's centers under there and rising up and dunking. And I already did a lot of talking about this team just a couple of days ago, so I'm gonna move on. At number 2, I have the 02 Kings, and I was so happy we finally got this team, because I remember we had them in like 2K11 or 2K12 with Chris Webber, and then they just disappeared for years. And Chris Webber is a really fun player to use in this game. He looks a bit small for the power forward position, but that works perfectly, because all you guys who watch basketball today, you're used to small power forwards anyways. No, he doesn't shoot the 3 ball, but he does have handles. So there was a lot of instances where I would have him on the perimeter, and I would just handle the ball and make my way into the post, and this man would dunk on anybody. But anyways, this team is streaky throughout their shooting, and that's why they didn't get number 1 spot, but they still do have one of the best shooters in the game in Peja Stojakovic. And in my experience so far, Stojakovic is just one of the best shooters in the game, period. His release is icy, and whether you're using him on the Kings, the Mavericks, or the Hornets, he's pretty much a knockdown shooter. Now, I can't say the same for the rest of the guys on the Kings roster, because if you go back and watch the episode I made with them, that was one of my main complaints. And it was that I would have wide open shots with so many of these guys, and they just would not go in for anything. But in the end, I cranked out a lot more wins than losses with this team, and that's what made them one of my favorite teams to use. On top of the fact that people just didn't know how to defend this team, because I'm assuming the 02 Kings just don't pop up a lot. I think I only played them like once or twice, and that was when the game first came out. I think somebody was using the Kings, or as a matter of fact, that was me that was using the Kings, so I don't know if I've ever played against the Kings in online ever. So I guess I would call this a sleeper team. And at my number 1 spot, I have the 1995 Orlando Magic. I have nightmares of playing against this squad, both from 2K13 when I used to play against my friend and he used to use them, and in NBA 2K16 trying to beat them through my association. This team just has so many advantages. As you saw, I was actually able to use this squad to beat the 16 Warriors, and I count that as an accomplishment because the Warriors are some damn cheese in this game. But it's just such an advantage that you have a tall point guard, and in any roster in this game that has a tall point guard, that's an advantage because it creates mismatches 9 times out of 10. I was able to dominate Steph Curry with Penny Hardaway. Shaquille O'Neal is very unstoppable because this is him back when he could even handle the ball a bit, although I don't know if he can actually do it in the game. But still, he's killing whoever's in the paint. And as a matter of fact, I think this is probably the best roster that Shaquille O'Neal has in the game. Not in terms of talent, but in terms of playstyle, because even on the 04 Lakers, he's playing next to Karl Malone, and the spacing can get a bit annoying there. But playing with the 95 Magic, everybody can shoot the ball around them. So you start 3D, Nick Anderson, Penny Hardaway. You can run some really amazing sets because you throw the ball down low to Shaq, and if you see somebody sleeping on any of those guys, that's a 3-pointer. And of course, a big man as dominant as Shaq works best with 3-pointers, so you can play inside out. And I just love that episode and what I did to that guy using Penny Hardaway. He was all over Steph Curry the whole night, ripped him a couple of times at the end, and that was just a very enjoyable squad to use. And just thinking about that, you've got so many options with Shaq in this game, because just think about what I went over. You've got Shaquille O'Neal playing with Dwayne Wade, Kobe Bryant, and Penny Hardaway. So basically any roster that you use in this game with Shaq, you've got some great play styles, and I like that they're all different. But anyways, that's what I got for today. That's my rankings for the last 10 teams, and I'm very much forward looking to the next 10 teams. Next 10 should include a lot of teams that you guys were looking for, because I went back and I started playing with teams that I had skipped originally, so don't be surprised when you see some years out of order throughout the next 10 videos. If you like this video, hit the like button, comment, and sub. Hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.